Hello, everyone. Welcome to WoW Live, the weekly appointment that the Baby Lab from Essex University and Baby Brains bring you together as part of our WoW From the Womb to the World initiative. Today, we have a very special guest, Professor Emily Jones from the University of Birkbeck College, University of London, the Center of Brain and Cognitive Development. Welcome, Emily. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me, Sylvia.
Thank you. Let's start. So Emily has got like a huge corpus of research and in neurodiversity, in autism. But it's interesting to see that your focus is on variability in developmental trajectories. So it all sounds very technical. Could you explain to us a little bit what that means? Because during the week, we have heard about testimonials and perspectives from people that are non-neurotypical, that live with a brain that is a bit different from the average. But from a scientific point of view, what can we learn?
Yeah, so a lot, I think, traditionally of infant research is focused on the average. So, what do babies do at different stages? How does baby's brain work? And often that's looked at by taking, a group of children, measuring what they look at or how their brains respond to things. But the sort of general assumption is that mostly what we're interested in is, what the average brain can do. But actually, that's not really told us very much about why babies are different to each other. So why do some babies grow up being very talkative and others are less interested in being talkative? Infants have different interests as they grow. And for me, that's what's always been very interesting is what is it that sets children off down different developmental paths? And what is it in their brains that means they develop certain behaviors at certain times, certain interests, certain skills, or have certain challenges. And so what we do is look at babies over developmental time to see if we can understand those differences between children. And so what in their early brain development might predict their later interests and outcomes.
So you're talking specifically about brain development, and does the environment have some key aspect there, or what do you think, brain environment?
It's one of those questions that's sort of been endlessly fascinating for sort of thousands of years in terms of how those two things interplay. We very much think of it as an interaction between what the child brings into the world and then their environment that they're in. So we know right from birth and probably before that the infant's brain seeks out different experiences. So as infants start to grow, they get more independent and they can do that more obviously. So, I know from my own children that they decide what they want to do and what I want them to do is not necessarily on their list. But even from birth, they choose what to look at. My son, when he was born, was very interested in this purple bottle I had, and that's all he wanted to look at. And what he's doing is giving his brain experiences to then specialize in a certain direction. And so, right from the beginning, baby's brain develops through this interaction between their genes and what they've got already, but then what experiences they have to select from. So what kinds of things, parents bring to them, provide for them, and, as they get older, what's there in the broader environment.
This is why at Baby Brains we kind of tend to say that the first job of a parent is to figure out what kind of technique your child is. That's how we call it. Basically, what is the genetic predisposition that they have? What are they drawn to? And this is going to give us the resources to provide them the information that they need, that they want, or maybe something that they're missing out and that we need to make it more attractive for them in some way. So knowing how your child is really help shape your parenting. And this is probably more so with children that are non-neurotypical. So you have a vast experience in autism research and not only. So can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So we work with often cohorts of babies and their families who have a greater likelihood of developing autism or ADHD themselves. And that's because they have an older sibling or sometimes a parent with autism or ADHD. And because we know those conditions run in families, we know that, say, if you're a baby with an older brother with autism, you probably have about a 20% chance of developing autism yourself. And so we work with babies who have older siblings with autism, and we follow them over time from when they're born or close to when they're born to when they're 3. And at 3, we can see which children either have autism themselves or have other difficulties or other strengths, and then look back in early development to see what it was that predicted those later outcomes. And from that perspective, trying to understand, what are the very early developmental trajectories and how can we then support that? So just like you're saying, how can we then work out what those infants are interested in and how can we help them learn the skills they need to learn, but through getting engaged with their interests rather than trying to sort of impose our interests on them.
And is there any finding or any specific knowledge that you've gained throughout your research that really is relevant, you think, for parents?
So one thing we've learned is that I think in the beginning, when a lot of this research started, people thought that babies who at 3 might be diagnosed with autism would right from the beginning not be very interested in people. So I think people thought that, maybe if baby's born and they're not interested in people from the start, then it's hard to learn about other people. And so over time, you fall behind socially. But actually, we don't find that. So we find in the first sort of 5 to 6 months, babies who are diagnosed with autism at 3, at around 6 months, are just as interested in other people as other babies are. So they look at eyes and faces and they're smiling and vocalizing. And then something happens that means that between 6 months and sort of 2 to 3, they become less and less interested. So that's important because we think, firstly, those babies, initially are interested and are seeking out social interaction, and something seems to be leading them to become less interested in that. And so if we can, work out what that is, we might be able to keep those babies engaged a bit longer or find out how we can interact with them in a way that they continue to find rewarding. And we hope that might then, allow them to get to the point where they're better able to engage, say, when they get to school or when they get to social settings where they have to have some basic social skills. So I guess that's one thing that we've been learning.
Yeah, that is so interesting, and it really, I think it really resonates with the experience of many parents that are very surprised or really. And while maybe at the beginning we observe our children with a lot of attention and we look out, like so many parents have this, this idea that their children might not be typical in the first months, and then that kind of seems to go away because probably you're just too busy managing the everyday life, and then that's actually when the paths begin to diverge. So it's quite it's a very good thing to know for many parents. And what is it that studying autism or ADHD can tell us about both? Because it's very interesting in terms of learning about a part of the population, and then at the same time it's very interesting because it tells us something about the brain of the rest of the population, right? How it functions.
Yeah. So I think about this a lot because there's a whole range of research on, brain systems that underlie key behaviors. So there's a whole set of research on what in the brain supports social functioning, or what in the brain is, what they call the theory of mind network, which means that the brain networks that help you think about what other people are thinking. But what we found when we come to look at some of these brain networks in autism is that you might have, children who have very, very different social skills, but actually these brain networks look almost the same to the extent we can tell. And I think it's really challenging some of our assumptions about how well we understand what actually the brain is doing and how it's working. And for me, it makes me think a lot about, if we look at these networks in children whose behavior is very different, but those brain networks look the same, maybe we're misinterpreting, or over, being too sort of confident about our understanding of those brain networks and how they relate to everyday behavior and skills. And so I think it's really helpful to study people who have a whole range of different skills and strengths and experiences, because it does help us understand exactly where we are and where we aren't in terms of understanding the brain.
Yeah, to kind of simplify and caricaturize a little bit, but it's almost as if we wanted to understand how somebody walk by looking at their arms, and then in a way we get the wrong information. Like, they have the same arms, so where are the legs? Basically, where is that thing that makes the difference between the way
exactly? Because you might look at someone's arms and they move when they walk, and you might spend a long time studying those patterns of arm movement and draw the conclusion that, okay, because that happens every time someone walks, that must be the system that's doing it. And of course it isn't. It's just a correlate, it's just a sort of consequence of that. So you're right, that's a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, so it's a really, really interesting topic. I believe it's one that really passionates me, because there is, as parents, often we are led to think scientists know everything and they're going to explain to me about how my child works, or and then often also we put scientists, doctors, all these experts, we make them in a lump, and then we expect a clear response. These are the people that know. And it's really interesting to see that scientists are learning. Definitely we can learn so much knowing what is known and what is not yet known. And it can give us as parents some cues in understanding the behavior of our children and how to support them, whether they are neurotypical or atypical, because I guess, I don't know if just my 3 children, but they definitely have their particularities, even if they are in the normal, defined as normal, right? And they challenge you, and you have to find a way to deal with some behaviors or some thoughts patterns, and the fact that even scientists, even like really good, amazing scientists, don't know. It's really something that we should keep in mind, and also it should be in a way empowering to the parents, just because what we know about our child is of a different quality, but it can put together with what science tells us about children in general, and then we can come up with an approach for solving a problem, or shaping a parenting style, or whatever. So it's really helpful.
Hugely. And just on that topic, there's lots, I mean, you guys have probably talked about it, but there's lots of stuff on, newborns are supposed to prefer faces, they're supposed to imitate your tongue protrusion. So when my oldest was born, I spent ages trying to get him to look at me or look at my tongue, and all he wanted to look at was this bottle. And I was really worried about it, because you read the literature, and I should know, right? I should know it's not that simple. But as a parent, it's hard to disengage from that, and so I got really paranoid. But more recently, there's been lots of studies showing that copying, sticking your tongue out isn't that robust. And, he's grown up and he's very into chess more than people, but he's broadly within that, typical umbrella. So I think it is important to take some of the scientific stuff as an interesting thing to think about, but certainly we don't know anywhere near enough to be able to sort of draw black and white conclusions at the moment.
Yeah, we have a comment of Anna Maria, who is saying that she received a diagnosis of as a neurodivergent when she was an adult. I think that's an interesting perspective as well, kind of going through life, acting typical, and big. So because we have many of this high functioning, which is actually a bit of a charged term because not it's not how many people like to be defined, but basically people that are actually neurodivergent and that cope with the system. So again, it's almost the reverse pattern of what you were describing before. In terms of the behavior, the behavior looks normal, but the brain is not.
Exactly. And there's lots of sort of more interesting models now that rather than have this sort of what used to be called the deficit model where people are constantly looking for what's wrong, actually there's lots of different paths that brain development can go down. And it's probably a lot of them are what we call adaptive, so tuned to the environment you're in. And so it may be that your brain starts off a little bit different. And so your brain needs to develop differently in order to get to its sort of happy adult state. And so, we can think about differences between people as one of the things that actually makes humans a very successful species, that because we're all different, we can do lots of different things and explore lots of different places and have different jobs. And that variability is actually what makes us successful. So I think people at science is beginning to catch up with that idea that actually that's probably a more appropriate way to think of it.
It's really exciting because we had a while back now, we had a chat with a lady who is the founder of Black Boys. And she was saying basically exactly what you just said now, like the idea of rejoicing in diversity. So from a very, very different point of view, but basically everybody is very different. Everybody has a unique gift. Yeah. And also a unique set of limits, right? We are human, we are limited. So really working with those and fulfilling ourselves within those limits and resources that we have, and helping our kids to do so as parents, as a society, at school as well. And it's really it requires a really big change of perspective. So as you were saying, from the deficit models.
Exactly. And from this idea that it's all about channeling children into the ideal path, and of course it isn't. Like you say, it's about finding their own ideal path, so creating schools that identify what it is that child's going to be good at and help them reach that, rather than make them all do the exact same thing at the exact same time, which actually isn't what as a species we're successful because of.
It's so encouraging and reassuring to know that there are scientists that are working towards that, and it's really, really fantastic. You were mentioning about siblings, about the fact that if you have a sibling who has autism, you are more likely to have autism yourself. You must be seeing lots of parents in these situations. Is there anything that you have noticed throughout the years? Anything that any advice or anything that you could share with parents?
Yeah, I think all of our families probably have very distinct experiences, and a lot of that's based on the resources they have access to, whether they're able to access the support they need in their particular community where they are. So definitely, if you are concerned about your child, or you have worries about their early development, certainly engaging with health visitors and your GP and making sure that you're talking to as many people as possible, just so you can try to to help them through that phase, can be important. But the other nice thing with our families is that because they've all got older siblings or older children with autism, a lot of them actually see things from this perspective, that it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a difference. And yes, it comes with challenges, but like you say, we're all limited in different ways. It's just working out what those limitations are. And so I think actually a lot of our families are then much more able to enjoy their younger child in some ways, because they sort of maybe freed a bit from this kind of constant concern that, you know, your child has to be on this one particular path, and if they're not, then things are going to be challenging for you. So I think I've learned a lot from that, from seeing how some of our families view it, and I think that's actually something that's really nice to see.
Yeah, it's very inspiring, I believe, for all parents, really. With the first child, I know from my experience, and you know, if somebody had asked me, I would have said that, you know, like, I think everyone is different, and everyone, I'm very open to different. But then I fell in basically all traps that are there, where I wanted my child to do something at a certain point, and you wouldn't do that, and I would stress about that. And it went like, even from breastfeeding. What time is he breastfeeding? Why is he not breastfeeding when I'm expecting him to feed? And remember books with notes about what time he breastfed, how much. And it's probably a process that we have to go through as parents, and especially maybe if we come into parenthood, you know, after having studied for a long time or having worked for a long time, where we are kind of used to be in charge. And then all of a sudden is this whoa, and I guess it's even stronger. It's a much more acute process for parents with neurodivergent children. But then I guess we are all on the same boat with that.
Yeah, completely. And it's and yeah, every parent will have both a unique experience, but also a shared experience in that process of having. And you're right, like. And often then when you get to the second child, it is a bit easier because you are freed from some of that, because you can see the older one, actually, a lot of that stuff may or may not have mattered, but there's no way of knowing. So
exactly. You might as well enjoy it anyway, you know, like whatever it means and whatever it comes later, here and now is happening, and that's what we have. And this ability to stay in the present and just take, and really, I think, with curiosity and playfulness, try to figure out who this person is in front of us, whether they're neurodivergent or neurotypical. They are our children, and we have only one of that one child every time. And so it's a really exciting, I think parenting becomes very exciting if we take the approach with this curious and playful approach that basically is the same approach that research has. Of course, not on just one child, but on the whole population. But it's kind of almost doing a very similar work, figuring out who are we kind of dealing with, and how can we support, and what can we learn in the process, because that's the thing. We can learn so much from them.
Exactly. And we know, you know, there's been lots of studies of sort of early interventions for autism. And my reading of it is that it tends to work the best when you basically are taking that approach. So you're following their interests, engaging with them in it, and using that as a scaffold for interact, you know, building that relationship, rather than trying to get the child to do what you want. You're sort of following them in. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. And I think that is probably the key message, that actually that seems at the moment to be the best thing that we know, is that, you know, if you can follow their interests and use that to engage with them and learn about them, that's probably the best way of supporting them early on.
Yeah. This is so, it's so wonderful that, you know, like lots of different disciplines are converging and really kind of, I think, loudly now giving us that message. It's difficult to change paradigms. It's still so ingrained in our minds, in our society, but it's good that we are all kind of shifting for this next step. How can we help with research? Is there any way? How is it doing now? I guess you don't have lab visits at the moment, but do you have
We've just started again, actually. So we've just been able to reopen, which is fantastic. So yeah, we're always open to new families. So if anybody is interested and you have a baby and an older child who either has autism or ADHD or neither, or if you yourself have autism or ADHD and a baby, then our Baby Lab website has information about that. But we also have lots of other baby studies running in London, but also now online. So yeah, there's lots of ways to get involved if you're interested.
Yeah. So yeah, in the comments, we're going to put the Baby Lab page, so that, if you're interested, if you want to contribute to this really wonderful research, please get in touch.
Yeah, we'd love it.
Yeah, we're fantastic. Emily, thank you so much for coming. It's been a really informative and inspiring chat with you. Thank you for giving us your time. And yeah, we hope we can call you back sometimes. If you have anything new to share with everyone, you know where we are as well.
That'd be brilliant. Thanks, Silver. It's been lovely chatting.
Thank you so much, Emily.
Brilliant. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.